Hi everyone, it's Tanya, and today I thought I would take you along as I make a card using the Cloud Whip from Scrapbook.com and some of the pops of color and this really pretty Autumn Breeze stencil I got from Scrapbook.com. So join me as I make this card. Here I have a piece of A2 mixed media cardstock on my silicone mat from Scrapbook.com. I'm placing my stencil down over that where I want it and just pressing that down. The silicone mat actually holds that stencil in place really nice, but I do put just a little bit of mint tape on the top to ensure that it doesn't move. And if I want to lift it up, I know it'll go back in the exact same spot. So what I'm going to do after this is I'm going to get out my Cloud Whip, and this is a new jar, so I have to remove the top and the little gel pack in there that helps keep it from drying out. And I'm just going to dip a little bit of that out and put it onto my Tim Holtz mixed media mat. I'm going to use my palette knife, and I'm just going to play around with the paste a little bit to get it nice and soft. And then what you'll see me doing is adding some of the pops of color to it once it's softened up. I'll speed this process up for you, and then I'll be back when I go to the next step. So here you'll see that I'm adding just a little color at a time and mixing that in until I get the exact color that I want. Now I'm going to use my palette knife and I'm going to apply the Cloud Whip to the stencil. And I take the scraper and I just scrape it across the top to remove any of the excess Cloud Whip. And I put that back onto my mat because I can add more to that and add more color to that. I don't want to waste any of it. And here you'll see I start on the second color. So for this one, I use the same color as I did on the first one, and I use the additional color here. And those colors will be listed in the description box below. This time I'm going in with a little more of just the darker color mixed into what I still had left on my mat, and that will be the final color, and I'll do this exactly like I did the first two colors. Here you'll see I'm just removing the stencil from the background, and I'm going to set that aside to dry. So I lost the footage of the background, but here's how I did that. I just sprayed the paper with plain water. I used some Distress Re-Inker and Salvage Patina and put it down on my mat. I dipped my water brush in that and then dripped it around the background. Let that spread out a little bit on its own, and then I went back and sprayed it again with water and then dried it. So here what you're going to see me doing is using the smallest embossing tool that goes with the Spellbinders Tool-in-One kit. And what I'm doing is just adding some lines to the leaves and the pumpkins. And I'm doing this so when I go to my next step, the color will soak into those lines and make them stand out. So I set the background aside to finish fully drying, and I'm going to use the Sketchy Leaves from Tim Holtz and my new Misty, and I am going to stamp out 2 leaves. I'm going to use Distress Archival, and you'll see here that I go back and forth between 3 colors, and I end up settling on the Distress Archival and Vintage Photo. Again, probably my most used Distress color of all of them is Vintage Photo. So that's what I end up going for this. So I'm just stamping up my leaves here, and you'll see me stamp them a couple times. Now, I do not remove my stamps from my platform because I am going to come back after I use my watercolor pencils on these, and I am going to restamp them. So do not remove your stamps from your platform if you want to restamp them and get them back in the same place. Okay, here you're going to see I'm going to pull out my Tim Holtz watercolor pencils. I have took the shavings from my pencils and made palettes, so that's what I'm using. It is the Tim Holtz watercolor pencils, just mine are in these little palettes that I like to use for this type of watercoloring. Here you're going to see I'm just placing those watercolored images after they dried back into my Misty. I have my Scrapbookcom sticky mat in there that helps hold them in place, and I'm just restamping those. After those are restamped, you're going to see me fussy cut those out. So here I'm going to go in with my Distress Mica sprays, and I use Mulled Cider, Burning Ember, Flickering Candle, Jack-o'-lantern, and Harvest Moon. And I just randomly spray these on. I go in with my water bottle and spray that and get that color all moving around and mixing together. And then I dry this, and the dots that are left, some of the ink that's left on my mat, I go back and I kind of pat it into that a little bit and then dry it again. Next, I'm going to start working on building up my actual card. I have an A2 card base, a piece of metallic cardstock cut at A2, a piece of mixed media cut just slightly smaller than A2, and then I cut down my background piece that I made. Here you'll see I'm adding just a little bit of the Distress micro glaze to just the tops of the Cloud Whip leaves and pumpkins, because the mica stains on there, and I noticed some of it was coming off on my fingers. This actually did keep it from transferring off of the cardstock onto my fingers. I don't know that it wouldn't have just dried on its own like that, but I just added this so I could keep moving on this card. Now here you're going to see I get out my Distress ink and Vintage Photo, and I'm just going to go around the edges of that mixed media paper that I cut slightly smaller than the A2 size. This is just going to be a matte for my background piece. So it doesn't have to be perfectly inked. I just want to get some of that brown on, so that I'm pulling in the brown from the leaves and from the sentiment that I end up stamping out. And then next you're going to see I'm just going to start gluing all of these down together and then gluing them to the actual card base. Now I'm going to stamp out the circle and the same from the note quote stamp set from Tim Holtz. I removed that black foam from my Misty because you don't need that with the red rubber stamps. And I'm just again using the Distress Archival ink and Vintage Photo for this. Now that that's all stamped out, I'm just going to fussy cut around the circle. I do leave a couple of the little dots on there, but most of them I do cut off. And once that's done, I do go around the edge of that with the Vintage Photo Distress ink that I still had on my dabber. And then I start to build this up by gluing this down onto some more metallic cardstock, and then I just fussy cut around that. Okay, here you're going to see I start playing around with where I want everything on the card. I have some wax thread that I kind of want to add to it, so I'm just moving things around, seeing where I want them. I did twist my thread up here and decided that I wanted to put that off to the one side more than down towards the bottom. I start messing with my leaves a little bit and scrunching them up. I just do this process kind of slowly because you don't want to tear your paper. I just kind of go a little at a time, kind of scrunching them and pushing the paper in together. And then once it starts to soften up a bit, you can kind of give a little bit more of a, I guess, ball it up a little bit more is what I want to say. But this gives a nice effect on the leaves. It gives them a lot more texture. And you'll see with the finished card that I kind of positioned them on there where like the centers are lifted up off the paper a little bit more. it gives a really nice look. So I have figured out where I want everything, and now I'm going to start gluing down things. You'll see that I get the leaves on the first big leaf on here, and I put just a little bit of glue at the top and bottom to start with. And then I add the second leaf on, and I just put a little bit at the top and bottom again on that one. Okay, now that I've got my string the way I want it, I'm just going to add some double-sided tape here to kind of hold it down while I get everything else on there and the way I want it. So I've got that tape just holding that in place, and now I'm going to use some black foam tape on the back of my circle to add that, and that will help hold that string in place. Add a little bit of glue to the bottom of that leaf again because I noticed that it bopped up again. I guess I didn't hold it long enough when I put it down. But there you go. There's the finished card. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you're inspired to create something today. As always, the links for everything I use today will be in the description box below. Those are affiliate links, but by you clicking and using those links, it costs you nothing, but it helps me to keep this channel going and helps me to keep creating and sharing projects with you, and I do greatly appreciate you clicking those links. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel. By you doing that, it helps get my channel out there and getting my videos seen. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.